The award-winning CBS News anchor Norah O'Donnell has broken some stunning news that has people talking. Announcing her departure, Norah has graced our televisions for years with her imposing presence. Everyone was taken aback by this sudden statement. However, it is not all. As she broke the news of a devastating health diagnosis that would put an end to her professional life. I remember Dr. Hale telling me, "I'll call you after Thanksgiving." That was over Thanksgiving. The fact that Norah holds herself responsible for this devastating health prognosis only adds to the sadness of her statement. This health diagnostic could be what? Continue reading as we reveal the devastating details. Devastating news about Norah O'Donnell's health. The terrifying health diagnosis of CBS Evening News managing editor and anchor Norah O'Donnell has been made public. Norah went to the dermatologist for her regular checkup a week before Thanksgiving. For the past few years, this had been out of her routine. But she went ahead and did it nevertheless, and the outcome was unexpected. Just what was this devastating medical prognosis? To find out, continue watching. It was a scary email that Norah got from her doctor. "I hate to be a holiday annoyance, but the results of your biopsy are in, and we need to discuss them." This email stunned Norah. Her eyes filled with tears as she searched for a seat. She sent the letter on to her sister without delay, and her sister attempted to convince her that everything would be okay. It was likely not a major issue. In response, Norah's sister suggested basal or squamous cell cancer. These were a treatable form of skin cancer that Norah's parents had previously been diagnosed with. Norah need not have been concerned about it. But this was of no assistance to Norah. The outcomes terrified her. It seems like the results couldn't wait until Monday. When did it have to arrive? So she pondered. In her quest for a response, Norah contacted her dermatologist, Elizabeth K. Hale, Maryland, by phone. The biopsy result confirmed melanoma, the doctor told Norah. Skin cancer's worst subtype. Norah wanted to hide beneath the table because she was so shocked. Having heard of melanoma, Norah said, she was aware that it was a deadly form of aggressive skin cancer that spreads quickly. Norah became terrified and absorbed in her own thoughts as a result of this. Was her life about to end? Stay for the reveal. Following an extended period of quiet on the phone, Dr. Hale inquired as to Norah's ability to hear him. Instantly, Norah refocused on the present. As she made her way past the Black Friday throngs to the exit, listening to Dr. Hale's words. She was sobbing because her thoughts were racing and her chest was tightening. Norah eventually opened up about her struggles with self-esteem in Good Housekeeping's June issue. The way things had happened to her baffled her. A lot of self-care had gone into her routine. Did she somehow deserve this? For what reason had she postponed my checkup? Tragically, Norah felt responsible for her diagnosis. But then what? When we get further into Norah's battle with melanoma, be sure to tune in. It wasn't long before Norah O'Donnell got some encouraging news, despite the fact that her diagnosis had left her disappointed and brokenhearted. Since the cancer was detected at an early stage, Dr. Hale assured Norah that it was treatable. No time was lost when Norah made up her mind that she wanted surgery immediately. Upon arriving at her vehicle, Norah examined the report on her mobile device. Melanoma in situ was confirmed by the results. Her skin is the literal embodiment of the Latin phrase in situ, which means in place in English. The melanoma in Norah's case was thus located on the epidermis, the outermost layer of skin. It had not yet reached the dermis, a layer that houses the lymphatic and blood capillaries that cancer cells use to rapidly move throughout the body. There are most deaths from it, while it only accounts for 1% of skin cancer occurrences. This means that it was not stage 1 cancer. Potentially fatal. Norah, being a journalist, wasted little time in gathering information regarding her diagnosis. Melanoma, she discovered, was the most deadly kind of skin cancer and the main killer of young women. On the other hand, she came to terms with the fact that she could have avoided cancer altogether by being more diligent about her dermatologist visits and making healthier decisions. Norah O'Donnell reflected on her childhood in San Diego and how hot it could get, sometimes reaching 100 degrees. As a result, she and her pals went swimming without sunscreen to cool off. Before prom in particular, she would make regular trips to the tanning salon while she was a high school student. However, how might these practices have increased her chance of developing melanoma? Melanoma is 75% more likely to occur in those who got their first indoor tan before the age of 35, according to Dr. Hale. More concerning perhaps is the fact that tanning causes skin cancer at a higher rate than smoking causes lung cancer. A fair complexion, moles, and a family history of melanoma were among O'Donnell's additional risk factors, in addition to these exterior ones. To melanoma by 75%. Many young women frequent tanning salons. The biopsy site was given time to heal before Norah's operation, which was set for a few weeks down the road. O'Donnell, being a mother, chose to inform her children about her health diagnoses at the same time. Riley, age 8, and her twin daughters, Grace and Henry, age 9, were all gathered around as she broke the news of her health condition. The children were full of wonder, anxious, and inquiries. O'Donnell reassured them that their mother would survive the surgery, allaying their fears that she would not make it. Worried about her children's thoughts while they slept that night, Norah felt guilty. O'Donnell made an appointment with Dr. Hale to have the malignancy removed after the new year. A section of skin measuring 3 inches in length was removed from her upper left back by the doctor. In order to close the wound, 25 stitches were used, and the patient had to be closely monitored while it healed. The kids pitched in big time to help Norah with the healing ointment for her back scar. Following the fruitful procedure, Dr. Hale remarked that Norah had been really fortunate. "So, Norah, I am eternally thankful that we detected your melanoma at an early stage. Many of the risk factors are present in you, as you are aware. You spent your formative years basking in the sun in Texas. The scenario would have been far worse than the minor surgery they underwent because the mole was spreading if they hadn't detected the melanoma so quickly." Norah O'Donnell's decision to see the dermatologist prior to Thanksgiving was a blessing. And she's still with us today, appearing on our screens. During her interview with CBS this morning, Norah stressed the significance of annual skin exams with a dermatologist in order to diagnose melanoma early, before it reaches an inoperable stage. Dr. Hales did advise annual dermatologist visits for people who had certain melanoma risk factors. After Thanksgiving, Dr. Hale had promised to give me a call. The scar from Norah's surgery, which was a success, was still visible on her back a few months later. If she were to wear a strapless dress, it would be visible. Norah knows the scar will be there forever, but she chooses to look at it that way as a symbol of how early diagnosis saved her life and the lives of others. She went on to say that the scar was symbolic of both the closing of a terrifying chapter and the start of a new one in her quest for health and wellness. The operation is just the beginning of Norah's ordeal. Despite making a full recovery, Norah O'Donnell's journey is far from over. Stay tuned for more details. This type of skin cancer is called non-melanoma. This is something that happens rather often. Every 3 to 4 months, Norah O'Donnell kept up with her checkups with Dr. Hale. Several biopsies are typically necessary since Dr. Hales carefully observes Norah throughout every appointment. 2 biopsies were performed on her during her most recent session. With all the craters on her body, Norah quipped that it was starting to resemble the moon. "Better craters than cancer," her dad responded when she told him about it. As long as she is hosting the CBS Evening News, Norah will continue to keep up with her routine checks, since she is spared the pain of saying farewell to us. However, an unforeseen event ultimately caused Norah O'Donnell to bid farewell to the CBS Evening News. How about this? We will discover. Even though Norah O'Donnell still sees her dermatologist every 3 or 4 months, she says goodbye to CBS News. The host of CBS Evening News, Norah O'Donnell, announced her resignation on her Instagram story. While shooting at the news studio, she shocked viewers with this announcement. Why did Norah, who had been our beloved CBS Evening News anchor for a decade and a half, choose to depart from CBS? Was she laid off by CBS or was her health deteriorating? Hold on tight to find out. Until Inauguration Day, Norah will continue to host the evening news, as she just announced. As she marked her last days on film, and she urged people to stay tuned in. Quite unexpected. O'Donnell had been the evening show's main attraction for the previous 5 years, but the news of her departure came as a shock. After Donald Trump was sworn in as president, he stated, quote, "America's decline is ended." She gave the rationale that it was time to do something different as an explanation for her decision. She would have been a journalist for 7 years. A lot of her fellow journalists do the same thing, they measure their careers by these major moments. January 24th was supposed to be O'Donnell's last day as CBS Evening News anchor. But plans changed because that evening CBS was supposed to air the Farmers Insurance PM to 8 p.m. While all was going on, CBS was planning to air the O'Donnell Show at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As the longest continuously airing evening newscast in the United States, CBS's evening news has a reputation for excellence. However, this was not the case. On Thursday, January 23, she instead gave her last goodbye speech to the audience. But CBS wanted O'Donnell's last show to be a comprehensive national broadcast, so they did something different. O'Donnell remained at the anchor desk to lead the program throughout Donald Trump's inauguration. She said her farewells to CBS Evening News with this. Not only that, though. There was a unique farewell for Norah O'Donnell. My last nightly newscast, as many of you are aware, is here. During the Thursday night broadcast, Oprah Winfrey was a special guest. The appearance by Winfrey on the show caught O'Donnell off guard. The producer would be terrified that the presenter would never release go of the audience for 30 or 40 minutes. My true desire is to engage in a discussion. The farewell for Norah O'Donnell was overseen by Winfrey. She spoke highly of O'Donnell, praising the enormous difference she had during her career. The screen presented a montage of Norah O'Donnell's most memorable interviews as a way to review her tenure on CBS Evening News. Winfrey said that Norah had handled each narrative with kindness and grace, placing global events in perspective and delivering an embrace, describing Norah's devotion as exceptional. Little lightheartedness and plenty of joy during the journey. The tribute was deeply moving. O'Donnell responded by remembering her tenure as CBS Evening News anchor and describing it as a once-in-a-lifetime honor. Also, she wanted to express her gratitude to the audience for sticking with her and for taking the difficult news home with them. The CBS Evening News team gathered around O'Donnell's desk and applauded her as the broadcast came to a close. That night, Norah said, "I'll miss you too," as the play came to a close. This concludes the CBS Evening News for the evening. To my co-workers, I am eternally grateful. I adore you, no joke. Have a restful sleep. For CBS Evening News, this was Norah O'Donnell's final appearance. But after that, what was going to occur? After Norah O'Donnell's incomparable voice and distinctive journalistic attitude graced our screens, who would take their place? Every night, that broadcast is put on by a large number of dedicated individuals. You can observe the editors and correspondents working in the field. The CBS Evening News has a new host. In the wake of O'Donnell's departure, CBS revamped the Evening News. They completely reworked the software. The Evening News, hosted by John Dickerson and Maurice Dubois from the CBS Broadcast Center in New York, would begin airing on January 27 from the program new home. From Washington, D.C., Susquehanna, CBS News chief foreign affairs correspondent and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan would lead political and foreign affairs coverage. What was happening in the world, whether on Sunday mornings when reading the New York Times or watching television? And Lonnie Quinn would be in charge of the weather. When Norah O'Donnell was in charge before, everything was well. But now, 4 individuals would divide up the program's responsibilities. After 5 years of broadcasting from Washington, D.C., the show's schedule was changed. However, O'Donnell is now in what position? Despite her departure from CBS Evening News, O'Donnell would not be departing the network altogether. At CBS, she had been promoted to a more senior position. Norah O'Donnell is currently a senior correspondent for CBS News, where she helps with investigations, special reports, and significant interviews for series like 60 Minutes, Sunday mornings on CBS News, and primetime shows. You are continuing a long tradition of excellence in journalism at CBS News by being here with us tonight. Wendy McMahon, CEO of the News Network, issued a statement in which he expressed his gratitude to Norah for her 5 years of outstanding service on the nightly news. She opted to keep working with them all the way until the election, and he was grateful for that. She continued working with them right up until the last minute, fulfilling her duties as an ardent journalist, even though she had already announced that she was leaving. CEO Wendy McMahon went on to say that Norah would be able to contribute across CBS and Paramount in her new role, giving viewers more of the innovative stories and interviews that have made her famous. With Norah's promotion to senior correspondent, she now has more leeway to take advantage of major bookings across many platforms. Norah O'Donnell had readily seized this momentous chance. The audience for CBS News in the evenings will definitely miss Norah, though. Looking back at Norah O'Donnell's tenure as a CBS television anchor, we may recall some of her most iconic moments. The career of CBS News anchor Norah O'Donnell has been filled with many unforgettable moments. Her conversation with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia stands out among the highlights. At the time, no American television network had interviewed a Saudi leader in 13 years, therefore this interview was a watershed point in O'Donnell's career since it gave the network unfettered access to a powerful figure in the Middle East. O'Donnell went on a week-long trip to Saudi Arabia and had a 60-minute conversation with Crown Prince Mohammed. Prince Mohammed bin Salman made history with his first broadcast interview in the United States. Some of the delicate and contentious topics covered by Norah O'Donnell's questions included the country's involvement in the Yemeni civil war, human rights abuses, its ties with Iran, and its main regional opponent. This interview cemented O'Donnell's reputation as a journalist who could secure and conduct high-stakes interviews with international leaders, and it also showcased her abilities as an outstanding interviewer. In 2016, she also achieved the remarkable feat of interviewing Vice President Joe Biden. Despite being offered brief interview time, O'Donnell declined 2 separate chances to speak with Joe Biden. This was due to her desire for an extensive, face-to-face conversation with Vice President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. She managed to get a full interview after multiple persistent tries. For 60 minutes, O'Donnell spoke with Biden and his wife. It is worth mentioning that this was the initial interview that Joe Biden agreed to do after deciding not to seek the presidency. This was the president's first visit to the Detroit car show in 3 years. Yeah. Despite widespread speculation that he will seek to unseat Barack Obama. In addition, the Bidens' first lengthy interview after their son Beau Biden's death this summer was this. However, it is not all. The White House acknowledged and honored O'Donnell as a result of this conversation. The White House Correspondents Association Merriman Smith Memorial Award in Broadcast Journalism was presented to Norah O'Donnell. For her persistent pursuit of high-profile interviews such as the 60-minute one she scored with Biden and his wife, O'Donnell was often recognized with this honor. Intriguingly, Norah admitted that she emailed Biden's communications team, the White House press secretary, close vice presidential associates, and even the president himself every single day in 2016. After 4.5 years of relentless pursuit, she finally secured an interview with Joe and Dr. Jill Biden. Not only that, though. Norah also had an interview with Pope Francis, which is noteworthy. One of the rare in-depth interviews with a sitting pope that appeared on a U.S. broadcast network, this was a shocking development. Since Pope Francis was typically occupied with giving interviews like this, it was also the first in quite some time. A number of recent concerns, such as the same blessing, were brought up during the 60-minute conversation, giving the Pope a rare chance to address them directly to the audience. While speaking with O'Donnell, Pope Francis addressed the contentious proclamation from the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which contained recommendations for the blessing of same-sex couples. Pope Francis, nonetheless, made it clear that he did not permit the blessings of a union of one but of all people. You may recognize Norah O'Donnell from her many prominent and exclusive interviews, including these. But before Norah became a successful TV anchor, let's examine her path to stardom and how she got here. Stardom was bestowed upon Norah O'Donnell by her. Norah Morahan O'Donnell was born to Noreen Bernadette and Francis Lawrence O'Donnell on January 23, 1974, in Ireland. Her maternal grandfather was one of 3 grandparents that immigrated to the United States, and he spent 16 years here illegally. The family relocated to San Antonio, Texas, however, when Norah was 3 years old. She began her profession in broadcasting at an elementary school after they relocated to Seoul a few years later. Just before returning to San Antonio with her family, Norah began videotaping English classes for the Korean Educational Development Institute. My parents, 3 younger siblings, and I all lived in this duplex. Norah earned her high school diploma in 1991 from Douglas MacArthur. Next, she enrolled at Georgetown University, where she earned a BA in philosophy in 1995 and an MA in liberal studies in 2003. Norah started working as a staff writer for Roll Call, which covers Congress, shortly after she graduated. Then she went on to spend 12 years working for NBC. In her early career, she worked as a White House correspondent for NBC News, chief Washington correspondent for MSNBC, and a commentator on The Today Show. O'Donnell has anchor roles on both Weekend Today and MSNBC Live. However, it is not all. Even NBC Nightly News was one of Norah's previous NBC News broadcasts. Coming back was a neat experience, and I believe it's essential to realize that there are a lot of people, not just soldiers, serving overseas. Today, MSNBC, and Dateline NBC. On The Chris Matthews Show, she also frequently weighs in as a pundit. Having joined CBS in July 2011, Norah O'Donnell is now a co-host of CBS This Morning. Since then, she has hosted other shows that consistently rank among its top performers. May 6, 2019 fell on. The CBS Evening News now has O'Donnell as its anchor and managing editor. Both her role as a contributing journalist for 60 Minutes and her role as the network's principal anchor for political events were maintained by her. Beyond her current role as managing editor, Norah has served as chief White House correspondent, fill-in anchor for CBS Evening News, co-host of CBS This Morning, correspondent for 60 Minutes, and more. She is a senior correspondent for CBS and has worked as an overnight news anchor for the network. Norah O'Donnell is an inspiring role model since she is a hard worker who has achieved incredible success as a journalist. The extraordinary amount of time and effort she put in. It floored me. Working with Gayle for 7 years was an honor. Her work has garnered her a slew of accolades and acclaim all across the world. We can examine a few of them. Ranked among Washington's 100 most powerful women is Norah O'Donnell. Additionally, she made it onto the list of the top 100 Irish Americans in 2000, as announced by Irish American magazine. Her coverage of the DC and crisis story for Dateline NBC in September 2001 garnered her the Sigma Delta Chi Award for breaking news. She took home an Emmy in 2008 for her exceptional reporting during a live news broadcast. A 6-month investigation and exposé on SALT at the Air Force Academy for CBS This Morning earned Norah an Emmy in 2018 for Outstanding Investigative Exposé in a Newscast. She was presented with the Edgar Allan Poe Award, an esteemed award, by the White House Correspondents Association in the same year. O'Donnell is married to DC business magnate Jeff Tracy, and they currently split their time between their homes in Washington and the Upper West Side of New York City. Jeff, the chef at the restaurant where she wed in June 2001. Grace, Henry, and Riley are the 3 wonderful children God has blessed them with. After receiving a health diagnosis, CBS Evening News presenter Norah O'Donnell resigned. What are your thoughts on this? Is Norah's performance an indicator of how well these new anchors will perform? Post a comment below to share your opinions. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing. For more, subscribe and share. Please also click on the video that is now displayed on your screen. I promise you, you will love it.